ask you to take a little journey back in time with me, just a few years to 2018, Christmas morning to be exact. And so I take my wife and my two kids, as always, down to Little Rock, Arkansas, to spend the holiday with my mom's boyfriend, don't get me started, and my older sister. And it's great. Christmas morning, and the kids are tearing through packages at a breakneck pace. Michael Bublé music is playing on the stereo, and there's laughter and chatter. And my sister says, "Open mine." Okay, so I open it up, and she's given me a DNA testing kit. "I thought it would be fun," she said. "Thank you," I gushed. But I'm furious. She doesn't realize the Hellraiser-level Pandora's box of emotions and actions she could be putting unleashing here. Now, my sister and I were both adopted. We're not biologically related, and neither of us has ever had any contact with our birth parents. So as I'm looking at my sister's gift, I suddenly turn into a little boy again. A scared little boy who wonders why he was abandoned, given up. I remember when my parents told me that I was adopted. I was 4, and I was pretty confused. "So, you're not my real parents?" "Oh, we're your real parents. You just weren't born from us." "Okay," I think I said. And I popped down from the swivel bar stool in our kitchen, and I patted my little socky feet back to my room. And I closed the door, and I think if I'd had the vocabulary to express it at the time, I would have said something like, "What the fuck?" Our adoption wasn't talked about very much while I was growing up. It really just didn't come up. Not unless there was ever a question of like blood type, or if there was a history of heart disease or cancer in our family. No one had any answers to this, of course. And I wondered sometimes if my birth mother was ever thinking about me when I turned 10, when I graduated high school, college. And I thought about seeking her out when I turned 25. But in the year 2000, I hit the big 3-0, and I thought, if I'm ever going to do this, I better get to it. Now, these were the days before DNA testing kits. So my dad sat me down and very methodically and gently laid out the information he had from his old and very organized files. He presented me with my birth certificate from New Orleans and an envelope from Volunteers of America, the organization that had housed my birth mother and had taken her in and had helped her until she was ready to go back to what, right? I mean, just return to school, return home to her parents and friends, run away? If she was young and alive, both of which I assumed, did she just show up back in her hometown and ready to resume her former life? Does she have a boyfriend or a young husband? Were they just too young, too naive, too broke? Did she want to keep me? Did she want to get an abortion? Why didn't she? So, after verifying that Volunteers of America did in fact still exist, I wrote to them requesting any information they had. And about 3 weeks later, in July of 2000, a letter arrived. My name and address written in beautiful script. And I stared at that letter like it held a college acceptance, sweepstakes results, and a summons all in one. Dear Alan, we are responding to your request regarding your birth parents. According to Louisiana law, we are not permitted to release the names of your birth parents. At this time, we have not been contacted by your birth parents. A copy of your request will be placed in your file. Should your birth parents or siblings contact the agency, we will make them aware of your contact. However, we are able to provide the following non-identifying information. Your birth mother was 19 years old at the time of your birth. She was 5'4" tall and weighed 115 pounds. Her nationality is Italian-French. Your birth mother had one brother, 24, and one sister, age 23. Shortly before your birth mother's sister and her husband were killed in an automobile accident. According to your birth mother, your birth father was 22 years of age. He was 5'8" and weighed 140 pounds. He was described as very athletic. Your birth father was believed to have 5 or 6 siblings. He was unaware of the pregnancy. You were born at 1:27 p.m. on June 24th. Your birth mother named you Dylan. Rejected again. What to do? What to think? It was too much. And not enough. But I knew 3 things. I knew that my birth mother hadn't reached out to say that she wanted contact. I knew that my birth father didn't know I existed. And I knew what the state of Louisiana could do with their law. I cried a lot. And then I put that letter and my feelings away for a long time. Until that Christmas, 18 years later, with my sister and my family and Michael Bublé. Now, to be fair, my sister thought that the DNA test would tell you something like, you're 65% Italian, or you're 20% Russian-Lithuanian. She never believed that it would lead to real connections with actual other real people. And neither did I, not really. I was afraid. I was afraid of disrupting my family's life. Afraid of throwing a wrench into somebody else's very settled life. Hi, I'm your kid. But mostly, I was afraid of being rejected. Again. So for 6 months, that DNA testing kit sat on the desk in my home office. And I looked at it every day like it contained uranium. Afraid that its radioactivity would poison my life and the lives of others. And then one day, we were packing for a 2-week vacation. And my wife said, "You're going to do that thing?" Well, I figured now was the time. We'd be away. I wouldn't be sitting around stewing over it, waiting for the results. So I created my online profile, spit into the vial, and dropped it in the mail. And sure enough, after a few days of vacation and the jet lag wore off, my thoughts were more on R&R than DNA. Till I got home. With the remnants of the test kit still scattered across my desk, I went to Ancestry.com and checked my account. "We have your results," it said. So with rocks in my stomach and my heart in my throat, I clicked. Now, the first thing you see on Ancestry.com is where my people come from. And in the commercials, this is where someone discovers, like, they thought they were all Irish, turns out they were 20% Danish, that kind of thing. As a terminally Caucasian man myself, it's no surprise that my people originated from northern Italy and parts of France. But as the timeline moves forward, the geography gets much more specific and settles for me into a tight little triangle west of New Orleans called Acadiana. It turns out I'm 100% Cajun. Laissez le bon temps rouler. Hey, I've always loved the water. I've always preferred hot weather, because it turns out I'm part alligator. But there's a second part to these DNA test results. A second tab called People You Might Be Related To. And as I click on that tab, I see this long list of names. The names of my people, people that share my DNA. The first ones I've ever seen other than my own 2 children. Beautiful Cajun names. Richard, Gramion, Fusilier, LeBlanc, Lecour, Hebert, and Roy. Now, the first name on that list is a woman who is likely my first cousin. I take that name from Ancestry and I type it into Facebook, and there she is with her husband and her 2 kids. Do I see a resemblance? Is it wishful thinking? But in the related to information on her Facebook page, I see who her mother is. That would be my aunt. So I Google search her name. And up pops an obituary in a local Louisiana newspaper, the Crowley Post-Signal of one Vivian Curtis. And wouldn't you know it, Vivian Curtis comes from a large family of 6 siblings, 4 sisters and 2 brothers, Roland and Gerald. Now, all I have to do is figure out which one of those 2 poor bastards was 22 years old in 1970, and I've got my man, my birth father. So instead of doing what I should have done, which was take a shower, I spent several days searching the archives of the Crowley, Louisiana Post-Signal, finding out that my birth father was indeed Gerald, that he had been quite an athlete. I also found out that Gerald got married on my 2nd birthday, and that his daughter, my half-sister, had been homecoming queen in 1994. I'm sorry to say I've still had no contact with Gerald. But remember that detail about my birth mother's sister and her husband being killed in an auto accident shortly before my birth? I figured if I could find Gerald's sports scores, the death of a young woman was sure to be big doings. The first day that I searched, June 1st, 1970, there it is in black and white. Local woman 23 and husband 23 killed in an auto accident. It was the Monday after Memorial Day. It has their names, it has the woman's maiden name, and that she is survived by a brother, age 24, and a sister, age 19. So in a daze, I typed that name into Facebook, fully believing I'm not going to see her, right? I'm not going to find her. She's long since gotten married and taken another name, right? No, there she is. I click on her name, and she's smiling back at me, my birth mother. So I called Volunteers of America. I think I found my birth mother. And the person on the line says, we can't tell you the name, but if you tell us what you have, we can confirm it for you if it's true. I said, I think it's Helen Sbriafico. And the voice said, I can confirm for you that that is what our records show. So on Friday, October the 25th, 2019, a wonderful woman named Laurie Arsenault wrote to Helen on my behalf. And just like I would have done with that DNA test, I was a wreck all weekend long, wondering where the letter was, when would it arrive, would she read it, would she respond? 4 days later, October 29th, my sister's birthday, my phone rings. I just got off the phone with Helen, said Laurie. She didn't know. She didn't know that she had to contact Volunteers of America to say that she wanted contact. She would love to speak to you as soon as possible. I didn't wait. I had waited 50 years. I called her right away. And she picked up immediately. This is Helen, she said. And I said, hi, Helen. My name's Alan. And we laughed. And then she babbled something for a second, and then she said, but I don't want to talk. I just want to hear you talk. And I said, well, that's going to be a problem because I don't want to talk. I just want to hear you talk. And we did talk. We talked for nearly an hour. And we talked again the next day. And the day after that. And I went down to meet her that December. And she and her partner of 30 years, Kurt, came up last summer and met my family. We talk and we text just about every day. Near the end of that first conversation, Helen said, there's something I have to ask you. Are you short? I said, no, I'm 6 feet tall. She said, well, how did that happen? I said, how the hell, what are you asking me for? She said, well, it didn't matter. I told myself I was going to love you even if you were short, fat, and Republican. And I said to Helen, I said, I can't wait to tell my mom about you. And Helen said, you tell your mom that she's my hero because she took you for me. And when I told my mom that, my mom said, you tell Helen that she's my hero because she gave me you. And I couldn't believe, I still can't, that here I was, so afraid of abandonment for so long, surrounded by all this love.